All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again to our weekly Poe meeting, our Poe class, excuse me. Um, there's been a lot going on this week, and as usual, I start off with an introduction. And today I just wanted to start by recapping what happened today on the International Peace Coalition. If you are not on those, you should absolutely sign up for the mailing list on those. I think those you can get those on the Schiller Institute website. Oh, you can't. I've just been told you can't get those. Okay, well, at some
RSVP to get on the meetings.
you can RSVP to get on the meetings, and I'm sure at some point I will provide a link on the screen for you to click to be able to join the newsletter and the mailing list in order to actually get on our IPC calls. But today's call was pretty intense, I should say, and it welcomed a great dialogue because the theme of today's call was don't look at the past or the present, but the future. And I thought that what was great about the call today was that it was, well, what's our vision for the future? And as we look here at the college campuses, and as we look at the protests that are happening here in the United States and the crackdowns that are happening, the ultimate unifying goal or the vision will actually have to be, what do we want the future to look like for the region and also for our country, and what does development actually look like here in the United States as well as all of America, Central America, South America, and North America. I actually got to pose a question on the International Peace Coalition about exactly that. How do we have joint joint talks regionally here in the North America and the South America, English Spanish relation, building these sort of bridges and these talks with these groups that want to bring development not just to Palestine but also to the Americas as a whole and to the continent as a whole. And also Helga Zepp-LaRouche gave, which I believe is already available at the on the Schiller Institute YouTube channel. She gave a pretty extensive briefing, and just a little bit that was on that was stuff that, like, how the Israelis attempted to stop the United States from negotiating with Hamas twice. So there are some breaking developments here. Some people in the comments are saying that there's some problems that's not showing up on YouTube. Looking now. Okay, no, it's been fixed. Okay, great. That wasn't just me. Okay, all right. Hello, William. Thank you for coming up again. Thank you so much. And one last announcement I will make before we go right into Dennis Speed is that tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., some of you may have seen it already on our YouTube channel, Senator Black will be joining me on Declaring Independence, and he will also be restarting his focus on the news show. He wanted me to make that announcement and to ask all of you to tune in tomorrow at 10 in the morning. It'll be maybe about a half-hour show. And so if you want to know more about that, just tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. That'll be great. Okay, so with that, given that it's already 6:15, I just want to go right to Dennis. So, Dennis, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, tonight what we're going to do is a relatively short story by Poe called "The Devil in the Belfray." This story causes some confusion. Jose, did you receive that video?
Yes, I did, and I can pull it up here. One quick
Yeah,
second.
and this is just a short video. A couple of people that read the story on YouTube, they do regular readings, and one individual is describing his puzzlement at the story. We just want to play this to give you a sense of it.
Sure, here we go. I'm gonna do this, and this.
Struggle with the story overall, and again, I'm looking for what is Poe's angle. What am I supposed to get out of this?
Oh, sorry.
And I kept looking at
I'll start this over. Here we go.
I also struggle with the story overall, and again, I was looking for what is Poe's angle. What am I supposed to get out of this? And I kept looking at, okay, is there a religious thing? Because there's the devil, okay, that has some religious tone to it, right? There's the belfry, which is usually in a church or some type of structure that has the bell that a lot of times, is a main structure in town, a center point. A lot of people's lives revolve around a center point of religion. Where's the context of this? Where am I going? What am I looking for? I just couldn't get it. There is an element of chaos. And for me, eventually, that was kind of the interpretation. I also abandoned my thought process of, I abandoned my thought process of the religious route and just went with more of a generalized route.
Okay. So as you heard, he felt confused. What we're going to do is go right into reading the story. And I think that's the best. So what I'll ask is that, Jose, you get us started. There are a couple of short phrases I will refer to. One is in the very beginning of the story, the phrase "in petto," which means in the breast or secretly or telling you a secret. Okay, just in petto, Petto. Just wanted to say that one, which I think is the only one that, and there are a few of other things. So what I'd like you to do, Jose, why don't you do the first paragraph, then I'll do the second one because that has a couple more of these, and then we'll have you resume.
Okay, perfect. And just so you know, Dennis, and just so the audience at home knows as well, we have some special visitors with us here who would also like to read. That's Anastasia and others too, Dennis, just so you keep that cast in your mind here.
Okay, then people should nominate themselves and we'll go right to them as we go past these two paragraphs. Okay?
Sure. Okay. All right. Perfect. And by the way, when you do want to come up to read, just come up. I will get out. I'll make sure this is a nice little space for you here. All right. Anyway, this is The Devil in the Belfray, by the way, just for people who are interested. This was published in May 18th, 1839. So here we go. The Devil in the Belfray, an extravaganza by Edgar A. Poe, Esquire, late editor of the Southern Literary Messenger. What o'clock is it? An old saying. Everybody knows, in a general way, that the finest place in the world is, or alas, was the Dutch borough of Vondervatimitis. Yet as it lies some distance from any of the main roads, being in a somewhat out-of-the-way situation, there are, perhaps, very few of my readers who have ever paid it a visit. For the benefit of those who have not, therefore, it will only proper that I should enter into some account of it. And this is, indeed, the more evident as, with the hope of enlisting public sympathy in behalf of the inhabitants, I design here to give a history in petto of the calamitous events which have so lately occurred within the limits. No one who knows me will doubt that the duty thus self-imposed will be executed to the best of my ability, with all that rigid impartiality, all that cautious examination into facts, and diligent collation of authorities which should ever distinguish him who aspires to the title of historian.
Okay, you can take the next short part.
By the united aid of medals, manuscripts, and inscriptions, I am enabled to say positively that the borough of Vondervatimitis has existed from its origin in precisely the same condition which it at present preserves. Of the date of this origin, however, I grieve that I can only speak with that species of indefinite definitiveness, which mathematicians are, at times, forced to put up with in certain algebraic formulae. The date, I may thus say, in regard to the remoteness of its antiquity, cannot be less than any assignable quantity whatsoever.
Touching the derivation of the name Vondervatimitis, I confess myself with sorrow equally at fault. Among a multitude of opinions upon this delicate point, some acute, some learned, some sufficiently the reverse, I am able to select nothing which ought to be considered satisfactory. Perhaps the idea of Grogswig, nearly coincident with that of Kraut to Plenty, is to be cautiously preferred. It runs Wundervatimitis, Wunder, Lege Donder, Vatimitis, quasi un Belitz absol, Problitzen. This derivation, to say the truth, is still countenanced by some traces of the electric fluid evident on the summit of the steeple of the house of the town council. I do not choose, however, to commit myself on a theme of such importance, and must refer the reader, desirous of further information, to the Aretiunculae de Rebus Praeter Veteris, which means a little treatise concerning other than things that are odd, of Dunderguts. See also Blunderbuzzard de Derivationibus, or on derivations, page 27 to 5010, folio, Gothic edition, red and black character, catchword and no cipher, wherein consult also marginal notes in the autograph of Stuff and Puff with the sub-commentaries of Grunt and Guzzle. We have the next reader.
Coming up now.
And as that reader's coming up, the point is that the preceding is largely nonsense.
Notwithstanding the obscurity which thus envelops the date of the foundation of Wundervatimitis, the derivation of its name, there can be no doubt, as I said before, that it has always existed as we find it at this epoch. The oldest man in the borough can remember not the slightest difference in the appearance of any portion of it, and indeed, the very suggestion of such a possibility is considered an insult. The site of the village is in a perfectly circular valley of about 1/4 of a mile in circumference and entirely surrounded by gentle hills, over whose summit the people have never yet ventured to pass. For this, they assign the very good reason that they do not believe there is anything at all on the other side. Round the skirts of the valley, which is quite level and paved throughout with flat tiles, extends a continuous row of 60 little houses. These, having their backs to the hills, must look, of course, to the center of the plain, and this is just 60 yards from the front door of each dwelling. Every house has a small garden before it, with circular paths, a sundial, and 24 cabbages. The buildings themselves are all so precisely alike that one can in no manner be distinguished from the other. Owing to their vast antiquity, the style of architecture is somewhat odd, but is not for that reason the less strikingly picturesque. They are fashioned of hard burned little bricks, red with the black ends, so that the walls look like chessboards upon a great scale. The gables are turned to the front, and there are cornices as big as all the rest of the house over the eaves and over the main doors. The windows are narrow and deep, with very tiny panes and a great deal of sash. On the roof is a vast quantity of tiles with long curly ears. The woodwork throughout is of dingy oak, and there is much carving about it, with but a trifling variety of pattern. For time out of mind, the carvers of Wundervatimitis has never been able to carve more than 2 objects, a timepiece and a cabbage. But these they do excellently well, and intersperse them with singular ingenuity wherever they find room for the chisel. Continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
The dwellings are as much alike inside as out, and the furniture is all upon one plan. The floors are of square tiles. The tables and chairs of black-looking wood with thin, crooked legs and puppy feet. The mantelpieces are wide and high, and have not only timepieces and cabbages sculpted over the front, but a real timepiece, which makes a prodigious tickling on the top in the middle with
Ticking.
ticking. Sorry, there's an L in mine. Ticking on top of the middle with a flower pot containing a cabbage standing on each extremity by way of outrider. Between each cabbage and the timepiece again is a little Chinaman having a big belly with a great round hole in it, through which is seen the dial plate of a watch.
Lynn, you want to read? Can you read?
Yes.
And then we have Kynan and we've got Robert, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The fireplaces are large and deep, with fierce, crooked-looking fire dogs. There is constantly a rousing fire, and a huge pot over it full of sauerkraut and pork, to which the good woman of the house is always busy in attending. She is a little fat old lady with blue eyes and a red face, and wears a high cap like a sugar loaf, ornamented with purple and yellow ribbons. Her dress is of an orange-colored linsey woolsey, made very full behind and very short in the waist, and indeed very short in other respects, not reaching below the middle of the calf of her leg. This is somewhat thick, and so are her ankles, but she has a fine pair of green stockings to cover them. Her shoes, of pink leather, are fastened each with a bunch of yellow ribbons puckered up in the shape of a cabbage. In her left hand, she has a little heavy Dutch watch. In her right hand, she wields a ladle for the sauerkraut and pork. By her side, there stands a fat tabby cat with a gilt toy repeater tied to its tail, which the boys have fastened by way of a quiz. The boys themselves, all three of them, in the garden attending the pig. They are each 2 feet in height. They have 3-cornered cocked hats, purple waistcoats reaching down to their thighs, buckskin knee breeches, red woolen stockings, heavy shoes with big silver buckles, and long surtout coats with large buttons of mother of pearl. Each, too, has a pipe in his mouth and a dumpy little watch in his right hand. He takes a puff and a look, and then a look and a puff. The pig, which is corpulent and lazy, is occupied now in picking up the stray leaves that fall from the cabbages, and now in giving a kick behind at the gilt repeater, which the urchins have also tied to his tail in order to make him look as handsome as the cat. Right at the front door, in a high-back leather-bound armchair with crooked legs and puppy feet like the tables, is seated the old man of the house himself. He is exceedingly puffy. He is an exceedingly puffy little gentleman with big circular eyes and a huge double chin. His dress resembles that of the boys, and I need say nothing further about it. All the difference is that his pipe is somewhat bigger than theirs, and he can make a greater smoke. Like them, he has a watch, and he carries that watch in his pocket. To say the truth, he has something of more importance than a watch to attend to, and what that is, I shall presently explain. He sits with his right leg upon his left knee, wears a grave countenance, and always keeps one of his eyes, at least, resolutely bent upon a certain remarkable object in the center of the plain. This object is situated in the steeple of the house of the town council. The town council are all the very little, round, intelligent men with big saucer eyes and fat double chins, and have their coats much longer and their shoe buckles much bigger than the ordinary inhabitants of Vondervotteimittis. Since my sojourn in the borough, they have had several special meetings and have adopted three important resolutions: that it is wrong to alter the good old course of things, that there is nothing tolerable out of Vondervotteimittis, and that we will stick by our clocks and our cabbages.
Next reader.
Above the session room of the council is the steeple, and in the steeple is the belfry, where exists and has existed time out of mind the pride and wonder of the village, the great clock of the borough of Vondervotteimittis. And this is the object to which the eyes of all the old gentlemen are turned who sit in the leather-bottomed armchairs. The great clock has 7 faces, one in each of the 7 sides of the steeple, so that it can be readily seen from all quarters. Its faces are large and white, and its hands heavy and black. There is a belfry man whose sole duty is to attend it, but this duty is the most perfect of sinecures, for the clock of Vondervotteimittis was never yet known to have anything the matter with it. Until lately, the bare supposition of such a thing was considered heretical. From the remotest periods of antiquity to which the archives have reference, the hours have been regularly struck by the big bell. And indeed, the case is just the same with all the other clocks and watches in the borough. Never was such a place for keeping the true time. When the large clapper thought proper to say 12 o'clock, all its obedient followers opened their throats simultaneously and responded like a very echo. In short, the good burghers were fond of their sauerkraut, but then they were proud of their clocks. All people who hold sinecure offices are held in more or less respect, and as the belfry man of Vondervotteimittis has the most perfect of sinecures, he is the most perfectly respected of any man in the world. He is the chief dignitary of the borough, and the very pigs look up to him with a sentiment of reverence. His coat-tail is very far longer. His pipe, his shoe buckles, his eyes, and his belly very far bigger than those of any old gentleman in the village. And as to his chin, it is not only double, but triple. I have thus painted the happy estate of Vondervotteimittis. Alas, that so fair a picture should ever experience a reverse. There has been long a saying among the wisest inhabitants that no good can come from over the hills, and it really seemed that the words had in them something of the spirit of prophecy. It wanted 5 minutes of noon, on the day before yesterday, when there appeared a very odd-looking object on the summit of the ridge to the eastward. Such an occurrence, of course, attracted universal attention, and every little old gentleman who sat in a leather-bottomed armchair turned one of his eyes with a stare of dismay upon the phenomenon, still keeping the other upon the clock in the steeple.
Next, to another reader.
By the time that it wanted only 3 minutes of noon, the droll object in question was clearly perceived to be a very diminutive, foreign-looking young man. He descended the hills at a great rate, so that everybody had soon a good look at him. he was really the most finicky little personage that had ever been seen in Wonder what time it is. His countenance was of a dark snuff color, and he had a long hooked nose, pea eyes, a wide mouth, and an excellent set of teeth, which latter he seemed anxious of displaying, as he was grinning from ear to ear. What with mustachios and whiskers, there was none of the rest of his face to be seen. His head was uncovered, and his hair neatly done up in papillotes. His dress was a tight-fitting, swallow-tailed black coat, from one of whose pockets dangled a vast length of white handkerchief. Black kerseymere knee breeches, black silk stockings, and stumpy-looking pumps with huge bunches of black satin ribbons for bows. Under one arm he carried a huge chapeau de bras, and under the other a fiddle nearly 5 times as big as himself. In his left hand was a gold snuff box, from which, as he capered down the hill, cutting all manner of fantastical steps, he took snuff incessantly, with an air of the greatest possible self-satisfaction. God bless me, here was a sight for the eyes of the sober burghers of Wonder what time it is. To speak plainly, the fellow had, in spite of his grinning, an audacious and sinister kind of face, and as he curvetted right into the village, the odd stumpy appearance of his pumps excited no little suspicion, and many a burgher who beheld him that day would have given a trifle for a peep beneath the white cambric handkerchief which dangled so obtrusively from the pocket of his swallow-tailed coat. But what mainly occasioned a righteous indignation was that the scoundrelly popinjay, while he cut a fandango here and a whirligig there, did not seem to have the remotest idea in the world of such a thing as keeping time in his steps. The good people of the borough had scarcely a chance, however, to get their eyes thoroughly open, when, just as it wanted half a minute of noon, the little rascal bounced, as I say, right into the midst of them, and gave a chassé here and a balancé there, and then, after a pirouette and a pas de zephyr, pigeon-winged himself right up into the belfry of the house of the town council, where the wonder-stricken belfry man sat smoking in a state of stupefied dignity and dismay. But the little chap seized him at once by the nose, gave it a swing and a pull, clapped the big chapeau de bras upon his head, knocked it down over his eyes and mouth, and then lifting up the big fiddle, beat him with it so long and so soundly that what with the belfry man being so fat and the fiddle being so hollow, you would have sworn there was a regiment of double bass drummers all beating the devil's tattoo up in the belfry of the steeple of Wonder what time it is.
Next, who do we got next? Anybody?
Sure.
There's no knowing to what desperate act of vengeance this unprincipled attack might have aroused the inhabitants, but for the important fact that it now wanted only half a second of noon. The bell was about to strike, and it was a matter of absolute and preeminent necessity that everybody should look at their watches. It was evident, however, that just at this moment, the fellow in the steeple was doing something that he had no business to do with the clock. But as it now began to strike, nobody had any time to attend to his maneuvers, for they had all to count the strokes of the bell as it sounded. 1, said the clock. Von, echoed every little old gentleman in every leather-bottomed armchair in Wonder what time it is. Von, said his watch also. Von, said the watch of his vrouw, and Von, said the watches of the boys and the little gilt repeaters on the tails of the cat and the pig. 2, counted the big bell, and do, repeated all the repeaters. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, said the bell. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, answered the others. 11, said the big one. 11, assented the little fellows. 12, said the bell. 12, they replied, perfectly satisfied and dropping their voices. Und 12 it is, said all the little old gentlemen, putting up their watches. But the big bell had not done with them yet. 13, said he. Der Teufel, gasped the little old gentleman, turning pale, dropping their pipes and putting down all their right legs from over their left knees. Der Teufel, groaned they. 13, 13. Mein Gott, it is 13 o'clock. What is the use in attempting to describe the terrible scene which ensued? All Wonderwatimetes flew at once into a pitiable state of uproar. What is come to mein Pelly? Roared all the boys. I've been in hungry for this hour. What is come to mein Kraut? Screamed all the vros. It has been done to rags for this hour. What is come to mein pipe? Swore all the little old gentlemen. Dunder and Blitzen, it has been smoked out for this hour. And they filled them up again in a great rage, and sinking back in their armchairs, puffed away so fast and so fiercely that the whole valley was immediately filled with an impenetrable smoke. Meantime, the cabbages all turned very red in the face, and it seemed as if the old Nick himself had taken possession of everything in the shape of a timepiece. The clocks carved upon the furniture got to dancing as if bewitched, while those upon the mantelpieces could scarcely contain themselves for fury, and kept such a continual striking of 13 and such a frisking and wriggling of their pendulums as it was really horrible to see. But, worse than all, neither the cats nor the pigs could put up any longer with the outrageous behavior of the little repeaters tied to their tails, and resented it by scampering all over the place, scratching and poking, and squeaking and screeching, and caterwauling and squalling, and flying into the faces and running under the petticoats of the people, and creating altogether the most abominable din and confusion which it is possible for a reasonable person to conceive. And to make it, if he could, more abominable, the rascally little scapegrace in the steeple was evidently exerting himself to the utmost. Every now and then one might catch a glimpse of the scoundrel through the smoke. There he sat in the belfry, upon the belly of the belfry man, who was lying flat upon his back. In his teeth he held the bell rope, which he kept jerking about with his head, raising such a clatter that my ears ring again even to think of it. On his lap lay the big fiddle, at which he was scraping out all time and tune with both hands, making a great show, the nincompoop, of playing Judy O'Flanagan and Paddy O'Rafferty. Affairs being thus miserably situated, I left the place in disgust, and now appeal for aid to all lovers of good time and fine kraut. Let us proceed in a body to the borough and restore the ancient order of things in Wonderwatimetes by ejecting that little chap from the steeple.
All right. So that's the story. Any thoughts?
Um, I mean, I have some impressions, but
Yeah, and yeah, just anything. Just see what people have to say.
well, this is the second story I think. What was the one we read last week? It was the Thou Art the Man, and it has, this is the second story. I guess it's the second story in the week that it's about a town, right? Where Poe is clearly going after a town or like a whole community, of people thinking a certain way or going, having group think, basically. Yeah. And just for people who don't know, last week we read a story called Thou Art the Man, where I won't give away what happens, but basically like the entire town will just not suspect one guy because he's really cool. And the entire town is like, no, I can't be that guy. No, it's clear. He's, so anyway, that's the vibe of it. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know if anyone else had.
Yeah. You got anything?
Well, I mean, I like the
Robert's coming up to say something.
the whole layout of the story is just very fantastical because the setting is like this valley that's like a giant clock, right? And it's completely absurd, but he depicts it so meticulously that you can kind of imagine it. But obviously, it's completely unrealistic or not real.
Anybody else?
I just put up a comment from one of our viewers. But go ahead, kind of.
Well, just to your point about how the community just falls in line with each other. I mean, they're really not so distinguishable from one another, each inhabitant in this town, aside from being maybe a little more fat than the other or a little bit taller, and their dress is pretty much all the same, except maybe, their jacket's longer. So yeah, they're kind of indistinguishable from one another, which I guess is the purpose.
Well, we can tell something. Perhaps the idea of Grogswig, nearly coincident with that of Kraut to plenty. And then we have Vonder Lege Donder, thunder, dunder, right? What time it is, quasi lights its blitzen, thunder and lightning. Like Donder and Blitzen, as in, the Christmas Carol. So, and then there's sauerkraut cooking, Dutch watch, cabbage. What does that tell us? Is this a Spanish town? Is it an Italian town? Is it an English town?
German town or something.
Well,
German.
Dutch.
Dutch, right? He says Dutch.
Dutch. Well, he says Dutch, but Dutch can mean Deutsch also.
German Dutch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that much, right? Let me, okay. Anything else?
Well, it's certainly ironic that what do the Irish have to do with anything at the end?
Well,
That's a good question.
they're clearly the agent of chaos. They clearly represent that. Let me read you the beginning of this is actually from a puzzle, but it's well known. It references something that's well known. It is said that Immanuel Kant was a bachelor of such regular habits that the good people of Königsberg would adjust their clocks when they saw him stroll past certain landmarks.
Oh, okay. But just that's so they would.
Let me read it again so everybody can hear it. It is said that Immanuel Kant was a bachelor of such regular habits that the good people of Königsberg would adjust their clocks when they saw him stroll past certain landmarks.
Königsberg.
Yeah, somebody. So look it up. Look up where that is. Königsberg. Konigsberg has an umlaut over the O.
Okay, I got it. I'll pull it up here on the share. Königsberg. Here we go. This says Königsberg is the historic German and Prussian name of the medieval city that is now Kaliningrad, Russia. Kaliningrad, excuse me, Russia. The city was founded in 1255 on the site of the small old Prussian settlement Twangsty by the Teutonic Knights during the Baltic Crusade.
Okay, so it's a German city founded by the Teutonic Knights, but it's now Kaliningrad. You want to look at where Kaliningrad is?
Yeah, I do.
You definitely do.
Let's go to maps. All right, so here's Kaliningrad. If I zoom out, oh, it's on the it's not even in the.
Oh,
It's in Europe.
oh, but it's a German city.
Yeah.
What's that tell you? I mean, it's clearly not Netherlands.
Yeah.
So if it's a German city, how come it's a German city if it's all the way over there?
Well, so then when does this take place? And
So, all right. You may want to look for a map of Germany of the period of 1800 or something like that.
oh yeah, because this is before the 1870s when they become an actual republic, right? Before Otto von Bismarck.
Yeah, forms it into Germany.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Let's see here.
Okay, so you do that, but we've established the name of a city, but there's another thing. Let's go back while you're doing that, Jose. Let's refer to something. So Robert pointed out that the city, that it's a fantastic layout, fantastic description. What do we know about the clock? Because the clock's the center of the town. So let's start at the center. There are many clocks, right? Because it says we will stick by our clocks and our cabbages.
Right, and the people who got watches, they've got. Then there's the big bell.
Right.
I found a map, by the way, which I mean, this is from the German Reich of eight. It starts in 1871, ends in 1818. But on these borders, I do see. Well, I'll just put it up.
You put it up so people can see it.
So here, right, and actually, I'll also pull up Kaliningrad on another tab so that people can kind of locate.
So people can see it. So we just make sure why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Okay, so if you look here, you see Sweden. You can see my mouse. It's a little magnifying glass. You see Sweden up there and Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Kaliningrad would be somewhere over here. Where Königsberg, right there. There we go.
Right
Baltic
there.
Sea, Sweden, right? So if we look at this map here, where Kaliningrad, like, so here's Denmark here, Sweden here. Then this is the Baltic Sea. Kaliningrad is right there. That's modern day. But then if I switch it over here, it's the same. Right. Yeah. So, but the blue, everything that's in blue here, I believe was part of the German Reich. So,
okay.
What year was that?
This map is from 1871 to 1918.
Okay. Now, the story says the great clock. Right. Okay. Let's talk about this. Above the session room of the council is the steeple, and in the steeple is the belfry, where exists and has existed time out of mind. In other words, existed forever or for longer than anybody knows. The pride and wonder of the village, the great clock of the borough of wonder what time it is. And this is the object to which the eyes of all of the old gentlemen are turned who sit in the leather-bottomed armchairs. The great clock has 7 faces, one in each of the 7 sides of the steeple. Now, anybody ever hear of the 7 bridges of Königsberg?
No.
Nobody know what that is? The problem of the 7 bridges of Königsberg, problem which is said to be how Leonard Euler ostensibly, I'm not saying this is true, founded topology. Okay, look up the 7 bridges of Königsberg, Jose, and then read it off.
The 7 bridges of Königsberg is a historically notable problem in mathematics. Its negative resolution by Leonard Euler in 1736 laid the foundations of graph theory and prefigured the idea of topology. Oh, and then there's like an image of a map here of Königsberg. Oh, showing the actual layout of the 7 bridges, highlighting. Oh, let me pull it up here. Maybe I can get a better picture. Let me share this here. Share screen. Quite interesting. So, this image here. Let's see if I can make it just alone.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. You make it big enough. Okay.
So, okay, I see the 7 bridges. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can you just stay with the problem supposedly is, which is how do you cross all the bridges without recrossing one of them?
Oh, by let's see here. Okay, laid the foundation. The city of Königsberg in Prussia, now Kaliningrad, Russia, was set on both of these sides of the Prigel River. It included 2 large islands, which were connected to each other, and the 2 mainland portions of the city by 7 bridges. The problem was to devise a walk through the city that would cross each of those bridges once and only once. Oh, okay. So you, well, yeah, you would like go here, right, and then here, and then here. Oh,
Okay.
uh,
How could you do that? Okay, so now that, but I only reference it here, not to go through the problem, which is an interesting thing, and also that the final idea is that you can't do it. But
wait, really? I don't know. I feel like I could do it.
okay, well, why don't you try doing a path right now?
We're back from Königsberg.
Well, wait. I don't know. Like you could start anywhere, right? Because if you can start here, right here by here, and then you would just go here, and you'd walk down here and go across this bridge, right? And then you would go up here.
But yeah, well, wait, but you're going around the bridges. That's like saying, can I, just read what the problem is so people are clear.
Okay, the problem was to devise a walk through the city that would cross each of those bridges once and only once. And by way of specifying the logical task unambiguously, solutions involving either reaching an island or mainland bank other than via one of the bridges or accessing any bridge without crossing to its other end are explicitly unacceptable. Euler proved that the problem has no solution. Oh, okay, well, now I see why. Solution by net. Well, how can you prove that something is not?
Well, okay, so the point is we now know there's something at least called the 7 bridges of Königsberg. That's why I just wanted that pointed out. Okay, let's do one other thing, just so people are clear. Look up when this problem was when Euler did what he did.
1736.
What?
1736.
Okay, and the story is when? 1839, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore it's a well-known problem by
Okay.
1839. Okay.
I mean, now I want to know how he figured out you can't solve this.
Let's go back to the story. Anybody remember anything from the story that might, in fact, give us any further notion that this town may be Königsberg?
Talks about the clock having 7 faces, one in each 7 sides of the steeple. So it's like the 7 bridges.
Okay. Anything else in the story? Look at paragraph 2, Jose, which you read, and read it again. Second paragraph.
By the united aid of medals, manuscripts, and inscriptions, I am enabled to say positively that the borough of Vondervatimitis has existed from its origin in precisely the same condition which it at present preserves. Of the date of this origin, however, I grieve that I can only speak with the species of indefinite definitiveness, which mathematicians are, at times, forced to put up with in certain algebraic formulae. The date, I may thus say, in regard to the remoteness of his antiquity, cannot be less than any assignable quantity whatsoever.
Yeah, what's that last sentence say? What does that mean? Okay. Where's Adrian? What does that last sentence mean?
Oh, I hate to.
Cannot be less than any assignable quantity means that it's like infinity plus 1, right? It's like it's larger than it. It's larger than anything that you could say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cannot be less than any. Oh yeah. Okay, I see.
So if it's a million,
It can't be
less
less
than a million.
Yeah. But it can't be less than any assignable quantity. So if you can
Right.
say it's 10 million, it can't be. Yeah, because I see.
Okay. So we're saying that this place has existed from when?
Forever.
Forever.
And a day.
From whatever assignable quantity you can give it, this thing has been there.
I see.
All right. So what is this story about? There.
Yeah. Well, also, what was so special about Königsberg?
What's so special about what does it mean if you think you can adjust your clock by how Immanuel Kant is walking through the city? What does that tell you?
Well, that Immanuel Kant had such a rigorous schedule that you knew if he was walking in front of you. Well, I guess. Well, why would you adjust your clock every time? But like, if he's walking in front of your house, and because he was such a man of habit, like it's like, oh, it must be 12:30 because Kant is walking in front of my house, and he does that every day at 12:30. Therefore, I'm going to adjust my clock to 12:30.
Well, what does that mean?
Oh, it means that people were like more reliant on Kant than they were on on themselves to figure it out. Like, oh, we'll just wait for Kant to come up and then we'll know what time it is. Like,
Well, it seems like there's kind of two, like you could take it from a literary standpoint. It's like you could say if people are setting their watches to Kant, they're that's sort of what I was just picking up on what you were saying. Maybe that means like people are, taking his ideas, establishing their own thoughts on his ideas in literature, people reading him. But it also seems like with the whole story, there's a definite idea about a sort of an extraordinarily rigid social formation.
They all watch him.
Okay.
Because
Anybody else?
all they do is just look at the clock and say what time it is.
Yeah, but what does it mean about him?
oh, Kant was also born in Königsberg.
Yeah, he's born there.
No.
He died there too.
He never left.
Oh, he never left? Oh, that's interesting.
Walked around in circles all the time.
Yeah.
Was the clock?
Yeah, he made himself. That,
Yep. Oh.
that all the people
Hmm.
made their life around him. Oh, how boring.
How about the paragraph? Notwithstanding the obscurity which thus envelops the date of the foundation of Vondervatimitis and the derivation of its name, there can be no doubt, as I said before, that it has always existed as we find it.
Oh, it's never advanced. It's always
Right.
wait. But is this also a critique of Kant's philosophy? I don't know much about Kant's
Oldest
philosophy.
man in the borough can remember not the slightest difference in the appearance of any portion of it. And indeed, the very suggestion of such a possibility is considered an insult. The site of the village is in a perfectly circular valley of about a quarter of a mile in circumference and entirely surrounded by gentle hills, over which summit the people have never yet ventured to pass. For this they assign the very good reason that they do not believe there is anything at all on the other side.
I guess the same was true for Kant, right? Born in Königsberg, died in Königsberg.
And people,
Now, this doesn't tell us a lot about necessarily Kant. It tells us something about what Poe is saying.
Yeah.
what's wrong with people?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to think on their own.
Wasn't it the case that somebody said to Robert, how did you describe the city
You mean just now, or
earlier?
as a as a giant clock, as a fantastical image of a giant clock?
Okay, well, why is it a giant clock?
Oh.
Well, if I remember correctly, there's a few different numbers that come up
Yeah.
that are related to like a sexagesimal, like 60.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I
so
found-
you have a giant circular valley. The whole thing is paved with tiles, so it's flat. So
Right.
the image is of a valley, which is like a perfectly flat circular plane, and then
It's got
there's 60 houses.
houses.
60 houses, presumably
60
arranged
minutes?
around its
60
circumference.
Yeah. And each house has a small garden, circular paths, a sundial, and 24 cabbages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's 60 yards from the front door of each building, right?
Right.
The center.
Right.
60 little houses, having
24
their backs to the
cabbages.
hills. Yeah.
And every house has 24 cabbages.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all every house has got a little man and a little woman who's Frau.
Right.
It's got little kids and little pigs and little cats. Matter of fact, there are no dogs apparently in Vondervatimitis, or at least they don't acknowledge any dogs.
Also, it's kind of funny because even the cats and the pigs are like orderly until they become disordered. And everybody knows, I mean, the famous expression, it's like herding cats, which is impossible because they all go in different directions. But in this town, the cats are not only orderly, and the pigs, but they tolerate a bell or whatever it is being put on their tails, which everybody who's ever had a cat knows they would never tolerate.
What was the Philadelphia Saturday Chronicle?
Oh, wait a minute.
That's
What's
just
a repeater? A repeater, which is on their tails, is a complication in a mechanical watch or clock that chimes the hours and often minutes at the press of a button. So the cats and pigs have clocks on their tails
Yeah.
that like chime and shit.
Like they're mechanized.
Everybody's mechanized.
Yeah.
Everyone is mechanized. Everyone is in order. Everything is in order.
And that's like the principle of the town. I mean, they have those 3 resolutions, which are like their 3 principles.
Read them again.
That it is, first one is that it is wrong to alter the good old course of things. 2, that there is nothing tolerable out of thunder what time it is. And 3, that we will stick by our clocks and our cabbages. And stick to your cabbages. I don't know where that originally comes from, but it definitely, it means your little cabbage patch. You mind your own business. You stick to your own little small things.
Okay, let's look at the end. Very well read by Stuart. I will also reference. What happens?
Somebody ended
What happens at the end of the story?
The 13. Oh yeah, they all freak out because like 13.
And what did they all say is therefore true?
It's the devil.
Yeah, but what did they all say? Yeah, they say that, but what else did they say?
My God, it is 13 o'clock. They all flew into a state of uproar.
Anybody on the chat? On the chat, is that what you're reading now?
Oh,
Take a look and see what people are saying there.
sorry, I forgot about the chat. My bad, William Gilchrist. He may have been responding to something that was said earlier. This was said 3 minutes ago, something about shape and structure, and then regulated, like with the clocks. This guy was referring to the clocks.
So,
Right.
so when it rings, it's supposed to ring 12, but the guy, the strange little man, rings at 13, and then they all say, "Oh my God, I've been hungry for this hour."
Yeah.
The crowd has been done to rags. The crowd has been sitting on the stove, presumably, like the cabbage is overcooked. Oh my God, my pipe has been smoked out for an hour. And so then the response is to start doing the exact same thing they were doing before, all much, much more in unison until they, like in the case of the pipes, they fill up the whole valley with smoke, right?
Yes.
It's
So what does this mean? What actually occurred? What did they say?
Well, they think like the hour has passed because the clock has said it passed, not because it actually passed.
Right.
Because they're relying on
the clock says 12, they say 12. The clock says 13, they say the devil.
Well, yeah, but they
Then
also
say- Go ahead.
no, but then they also say like, oh, but it's been an hour. Uh-oh. It's like, oh shit, it's been an hour. My crowd, it's pipe. I've been hungry for an hour. No, but like, I died. No, never mind. I was about to start saying something about what I thought about Kant, but I don't know anything about Kant.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. I'm just referencing it from the standpoint of the town. I wasn't really referencing the idea of Kantianism or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of books by Kant. There's a whole critique of pure reason, critique of practical reason, critique of judgment. I'm not saying people should go out and try to read these things, but you can't simply, there are some things that are relevant. But the point is that Poe has read it, and Poe does know where Königsberg is. And Poe is making a comment, and he's making a comment about the idea of the notion of physical space-time.
Yeah, that's right. Because I know that Kant also had a whole thing in Critique of Pure Reason about space-time and how time happens through our senses more. But again, I won't go beyond that. But yeah.
But why do they think an hour has passed?
Because the clock said so.
Well, the man said so.
Well, the man said so, right? Not the clock. The man says that's
No,
13.
the bell.
No,
It says 13
said he.
The bell.
No, yeah, 13 said he, not 13 said because the other one said the bell.
Okay, so the devil. So the strange little man says 13. Is that what you're saying?
and he
Because it says
I
he.
think, yeah.
he entered
Well, but I don't know though because the
the
sentence.
valley that makes
No, he changed the clock, remember? Take a look. It was 3 seconds before, right? Just look at the section there. Remember, he jumps on the fat little man's belly, the Belfray guy, right? He jumps him. He puts his hat on him, the chapeau do whatever it is. So that's a two-cornered hat. Pulls it down over his head, starts beating on him, right? So he's out of position. It was evident, however, that just at this moment, the fellow in the steeple, meaning the devil in the steeple, was doing something that he had no business to do with the clock. But as it now began to strike, nobody had any time to attend to his maneuvers, for they had all to count the strokes of the bell as it sounded. So when it says one said the clock, it doesn't mean the clock is speaking, but he uses the term said and then has the people speak.
Right.
So clearly the clock got changed into 3 seconds.
What time is it?
What's the name of the place?
Wonder
Wonder
what time it is.
That's precisely what they don't.
Yeah, right. They don't.
Wonder what time.
They don't wonder what time it is because they always know what time, or they think they know.
They never do. There are two things that people don't know. Well, actually, three. They don't know where they are, they don't know what time it is, and they don't know their left from their right.
Mm. Heard that before.
Yes, you heard it from someone before.
Yes.
And actually, there's an important discussion involving Leibniz and Kant. Well, I won't go too far in this right now. But no, excuse me, involving Gauss and Kant about precisely the question of left versus right. This is not something we should do tonight. I'm just referencing it, and I mean it.
You mean like an actual dialogue that was recorded in history?
No, Gauss wrote something on this question, and it has to do with the issue of imaginary numbers. It's something called chirality, directionality.
Bernansky does the same thing with the left-handed versus right-handed crystals.
And he gets that from Pasteur, who does that.
Yeah.
There is an asymmetry to life. There is but there's a symmetry to non-living processes. But there's an asymmetry, and there's also symmetry in living processes. But it's also identified by what's called chirality, directionality, left-handedness, for example, or handedness. Right? Your hands are not, right, in that sense, symmetrical. Yes, there is a symmetry, but they're opposites. Right? Your thumb is on opposite sides of your two hands. So this story is about a town where the thing that they are named for is exactly the thing they don't practice.
Yeah, okay. I was asking about what time is it?
And that
Goodbye.
is our present circumstance in the United States.
Population don't know. How close?
The one thing that people don't practice is independence. They're founded with a Declaration of Independence. They don't even declare it, actually. How do you know? Well, for example, their 250th birthday is coming up and nobody talks about it. Who in the US is talking about it? And among the people who are talking about it, who actually knows what happened? So, not a far-fetched story, not a far-fetched topic, and one that deserves revisiting. I would say that it'd be a good idea for people to revisit it, to take some time and reread it. But more might be said on another occasion. But I think that probably does it. Are there any questions or any other observations people want to make?
So Alan Salisbury is doing this work on Poe at the same time he's doing the work on like the American history, right? Like
Sure, that's where it comes from.
Right. Okay, I see.
And Poe is clearly doing a critique of habits. It's German. He has other stories we might do maybe next week. Perhaps we'll do mystification. Von Jung, the mystific. Maybe we'll do that story because this isn't. And remember that the story we haven't read Metzen Gerstein yet, have we?
No.
No.
We didn't do that. We didn't do that. So
We
actually,
yeah.
we just decided not to. Yeah, okay. So one of the two of those we'll do.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
That little sort of note that you brought up, that was really sort of about Kant's habits setting the watches. Was that Poe?
Oh no. Oh no.
I thought maybe that was like a little note or something. So what was that from?
Well, the particular thing I read is about a particular problem that got posed by a puzzle, but that's something that everybody. It's a well-known story. It's repeated often, and so many people have said it. In that particular case, I took it out of a very specific puzzle. It's an interesting puzzle. I can tell you what it was. People might want to try to solve it. It's a one about time. Let's see if I can find it here. Actually, let me just send that to you. But it's a puzzle that's an interesting question of how you can figure out time in a certain way. But it's a story that everybody knows about. That was in philosophy that studied Kant. There's a lot of other stuff to say about him, but since we have this class is not about him, and it's also not fair, you'd have to present, for example, his fundamental antinomies, something like that, to show how he, for example, simultaneously could prove two things which could not be ontologically true to be true. And that's why I call them fundamental antinomies.
But then I would ask myself, then look, what was happening in the late 1830s that Poe thinks a critique of Kant is neat. Well, not to say that the story is only that, but
that Kant is the essence, is the basis for romanticism. And I would argue, but this is not the class to do it, what people refer to as fascism. He's thought about as the architect of liberal democracy, and he's talked about as the inspiration for the French Revolution. He is considered to be one of the key sort of transitional figures from the so-called Enlightenment of the 18th century into the 19th century. And from the standpoint of philosophy, everybody from Schiller to Marx, Hegel, everybody refers to Kant and refutes Kant. That's one of the reasons the Gauss took it up. So it's an important matter to take up, and that's why Poe would have taken it up, because the American Revolution was recognized particularly by Fenimore Cooper, Poe, probably Washington Irving. I'm not sure about him. But those two for sure, as decisively superior to anything that the French Revolution attempted or accomplished. Today, it's reverse, right? Today, you can't, nobody, that's why you're hearing nothing about the 250th birthday of America. People still will talk about the Great French Revolution. But the American Revolution is the most successful, as was said by Sukarno and at Bandung on the 18th of April of 1955, the most successful anti-colonial revolution in history. It would be useful at some point as a side operation to go through Kant and at least present the antinomies and their resolution, which is also useful. But that's not something we need to do as a primary. It's really, I only wanted to go through it because every one of the stories by Poe, or nearly every one of them, is written for a purpose.
Yeah.
He always has a target. And it may, sometimes it's a particular person, sometimes it's an ideology, sometimes it's a method where he wants to show a method, like the tales of ratiocination, Murder in the Rue Morgue, and Purloined Letter, and Mystery of Marie Roget, and Goldbug. Those are all of a different approach. Okay, good. So that's going to be it for me.
All right. I will make, and we are